All right, so let's start doing more stuff with quadratics. So far in this unit we have only factored, and we will use that again. That comes up all year long is factoring, so hopefully you get really good at it if you're not already. So first let's talk about what a quadratic looks like whenever you graph it. And so they look like a couple different things. They look like these U's, okay, which is called a parabola. So, and they go on forever in one of the directions. Okay, so a solution to a quadratic is what we're about to talk about how to find. There's a few different ways to find them, but what they are is where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Okay, so it has to be the x-axis. So if you're going to notice, on most of these, they're going to have two solutions. Okay, so like for this one, it would be there and there. For the second one, it would be there and there. And then the third one, there is sometimes whenever it doesn't cross the x-axis, so in that case, it would be no solution. And we'll talk about that more later, but I just want you to be aware if you get a no solution answer, that's why, is because it doesn't cross the x-axis. Oh, and there's one other instance I should draw. Sometimes they only cross once, and what that looks like is they come down and touch it, pretend that touches, and so this would just be one solution. Okay, so here's, we're gonna, like I said, factoring comes up a lot. So first how you solve by factoring is you set it has to be equal to 0. Okay, so sometimes you might have to move some stuff around to get a 0 on one side, but it always must be equal to 0. Factor completely, whichever method you need to, and then set each factor equal to 0 separately and then solve. So for example, on this one, just don't even, equal 0, good. So now what can I do? Well, there's two terms, so your only options are GCF and difference of squares, and these are not minus signs, so it can't be difference of squares. So your only option is GCF. So what is the GCF? Well, in this case, it would be 2x, right? So this would be 2x times, what's 2x squared divided by 2x? X. What is positive 6x divided by positive 2? Positive 3. Still equals 0. Okay, so we've done step 2. We've factored completely. Now we're going to set each piece equal to 0. So this piece is going to be equal to 0, and then this piece will be set equal to 0. And we solve. So 2x equals 0. So we're going to divide by 2. So x is 0. And then this would be x plus 3 equals 0. So minus 3. And x would be negative 3. Okay. So on this problem, like most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have two answers. And on this one, it would be 0 and negative 3. Okay, this one. So first we have a problem. What's the problem? Well, it's not set equal to 0. So how do you move that 10 over to get it to be equal to 0? Well, you just minus it, of course. So then you have x squared minus 2x. Negative 5 minus 10 is negative 15. And those cancel, so you have equals 0. Perfect, that's what we wanted. Okay, so since this is 3 terms, my only option, and there is no GCF to factor out, my only option is to do the product sum. So it looks like we need something that multiplies to be negative 15 and adds to be negative 2. That would be a positive and a negative, and the bigger number would be negative. So negative 5 and positive 3, right? So I'm going to break apart that middle part, the negative 2x, into negative 5x plus 3x minus 15 equals 0. factor out my GCF from my first two terms, which is just an x. So that would give me x minus 5. Factor out what I can from here. It looks like just a 3. So a positive 3. That would leave me with x minus 5 as well, equals 0. Sweet. Okay, so now I have x plus 3 times x minus 5 equals 0. All right, so we have it in factored form. Sweet, we've done the hard part. Let's go to the easy part. You set each piece equal to 0. So this is going to be x plus 3 equals 0. So you would minus 3 minus 3. So x equals negative 3. Okay, and then the other piece, x minus 5 equal to 0. Add 5, x equals 5. Okay, let's do another one. All right, again, we have that same problem that the 0 is not on one side, so I need to move this over, this negative 4x over, so I'm going to add it. And that ends up giving me x squared. That would be negative x plus 4x is positive 3x minus 4 equals 0. All right, there's 3 terms, so let's do product sum. So we need what multiplies to be negative 4 and adds to be 3. That would be a positive and a negative, and the bigger number would be positive. So 4 and negative 1. Sorry if I'm going a little fast. Rewind if you need to. I'm just trying to make sure this video isn't too long. Okay, so I rewrote it. All right, what can I factor out of those first two terms? Looks like just an x. And that would give me x plus 4. And then the next two terms, since they're both negative and I want the parentheses to be positive, I'm going to factor out a negative 1. And that would give me x plus 4. My parentheses match, sweet. So this will be x minus 1 times x plus 4 equals 0. Right, we've got it factored. Now let's set each piece equal to 0. So I'm going to add 1. So x will be 1 on this solution. And x plus 4 equals 0. So minus 4. X would be negative 4. Next one. I know, like I said, I know I'm going fast. Sorry. Rewind if you need to. Okay, so got to get a 0. Minus 4, minus 4. So I have 2x squared plus 7x. What would that be? Positive 3. All right, remember, this one's a little bit different because your a term is not 1. So you need what multiplies to be, remember, a times c. So 2 times 3 would be 6, and adds to be 7. Well, that would be 2 positives, right? So that looks like 6 and 1. So I'm going to rewrite it as 2x squared plus 6x plus 1x plus 3 equals 0. Factor by grouping. Looks like I'm taking a 2x out of this one, the first one, or first two, I should say. That would just give me x plus 3. It doesn't look like I can take anything out of the other one, so I'm just going to take out a positive 1. And that would give me x plus 3. Put it all together. 2x plus 1 times x plus 3. Sweet. Alrighty, now I'm going to set each piece equal to 0, so I'm going to have 2x plus 1 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. I'm going to get the easier one out of the way first. So minus 3, x is negative 3. Okay, minus 1, now I have 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. So x is going to be not negative 2. It's okay to have a fraction. This is a fraction answer. Negative 1/2. So those are your two solutions. Alrighty. Okay, we need to do this one. Let's do it. So let's get a 0 on one side. So I'm going to subtract 2x squared. Okay, so that would give me 3x squared plus 10x minus 8 equals 0. Okay, so I need two numbers that multiply to be, remember, it's a times c. So negative 24, right? And then they add to be 10. So that's a positive and a negative, and the bigger number is positive. I believe it's negative 12 and, oh, sorry, positive 12 and negative 2. Okay, rewrite it, that middle term as the two terms. So that would be 3x squared plus 12x minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful. Okay, so factor by grouping, divide by 3x, divide by 3x. So I have 3x times x plus, what would that be, 4? All right, on this next one, since they're both negative, I'm for sure going to factor out a negative. Oh, not a negative 1. Looks like I need to factor out a negative 2. And this would be x plus 4, which is perfect because that means our parentheses match. So now I have 3x minus 2 times x plus 4 equals 0. So 3x minus 2 equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0. Let's go ahead and I'll do the harder one this time first. So add 2, add 2. So I have 3x equals 2. Divide by 3, divide by 3. So x is 2/3. Don't even think about writing that as a decimal because you'll have to round. So leave it as a fraction, it's okay. All right, and then the other part would be, we're gonna minus 4, the easier one. So x equals negative 4. Okay, last one of these, let's go ahead and do it. Oh, this is, okay, never mind, I thought something crazy was gonna happen, but it's not. All right, let's add 2x squared, because that's a negative 1. And then let's subtract 4. I'm going to do both of them in the same step. So those cancel, good. This would give me 4x squared. Bring down that minus 21x. And then add 5 equals 0. Okay, so I need what multiplies to be a times c. So in this case, it would be 20. And adds to be negative 21. So it looks like that's going to be two negatives, negative 20 and negative 1. Rewrite 4x squared minus 20x minus x plus 5 equals 0. Divide by 4x. So this would be x minus 5. All right, on the next one, we want it to be x minus 5, and right now it's negative x plus 5. So since I want the signs to switch, I'm just going to factor out a negative 1, and that would give me x minus 5. Sweet. So now this would be 4x minus 1 times x minus 5 equals 0. Set each piece equal to 0. Add 1, so we have 4x equals 1, divide by 4, so x is 1/4. On that one, I won't be mad at you if you write it as a decimal, it'd be 0.25, but just get used to writing it as a fraction, it's okay. All right, add 5, so x equals 5, boom. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. So let's review first how to simplify radical form. So this is whenever you can't take the square root. Most calculators will not do it to you. There's a few that might, that I've seen, but overall they won't. Like Desmos won't, most TIs won't. So it's not that hard. I'll teach you how to do it. So you may remember this from Algebra 1 and Geometry, because I know we've done it in both. but I'll teach it to you again. So you break apart this number, since you cannot take the square root of 8 evenly, it's some decimal. So you need to break it up into what you can take the square root of. So which perfect square divides evenly into 8? Well, that would be 4, right? Because 4 times 2. All right, so now the square root of 4 is 2. And you can't do anything, you can't simplify the square root of 2, so you write it as 2 square roots of 2. Okay, 18, can you take the square root of it? No. But it breaks up into, one of the perfect squares goes into it evenly. Which one is that? It's 9. So 9 times 2. So the square root of 9 is 3, and you say it as 3 square roots of 2. Or sometimes they say 3 root 2. I don't tend to say it that way, but sometimes I'll hear that too. It's not wrong. Okay, square root of 12, can't do it. So what does it break up into? Square root of 4 and the square root of 3. Right, so that would be 2 square roots of 3. Okay, and 20 breaks up into the square root of 4 and the square root of 5, which becomes 2 square roots of 5. Okay, so here's how you solve, and I really enjoy this, by the square root method. So take the square roots of both sides. So first of all, you have to get the x squared by itself on one side. Then take the square root on both sides, and then keep your answer in simplest radical form. And remember, this is the part that people will mess up, include plus or minus in your final answer. I should have done that up there. So all of these answers up here have, why did I do that? Have two answers, right? When you take the square root, you have the positive version and the negative version, always. So you do like a plus sign and then a minus sign underneath, and you just say plus or minus 2 square roots of 3. Okay, so every single time you take the square root, you have to write the plus or minus sign. Okay, please do it because you're going to get a half a point off on your quiz or your test if you don't. So, is the x squared by itself? Yes, perfect. Okay, so now we can just take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is x. You do not write the plus or minus on that side, but you do write it on the other side. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 36. This one is a perfect square, that would just be 6. Another way you could write it is x equals 6 and x equals negative 6, because there's two answers. But I think this way is much faster, and you just have to do a little symbol. Okay, so this one, what do I need to do? Well, right now, the x squared is not by itself, so I need to add 100 to both sides. So I have x squared equals 100. So go ahead and take the square root. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 100 is 10. Okay, those have both been perfect squares. I don't think this one is. Let's see what happens. So I need to add 32 to both sides, and I get x squared equals 32. Go ahead and take the square root of both, since the x squared is by itself. And now the 32 is not a perfect square, but it does break up into something. Some of you may think, hey, 4 breaks up into it, and you're not wrong, but there is a bigger one. Actually, I'll just show you what it looks like. If 4 is the first one you see, do it. So this would be 4 times 8, right? So square root of 4 becomes 2. But you have to do it again on this one because the square root of 8, or 8, breaks up into 4 and 2 again. Or not again, but 4 and 2. So square root of 4 is 2. So now put this together. I have 2 times the square root of 2, which would be 4 square roots of 2. Okay, another way you can do it, and don't forget the plus or minus. Another way to do it a little bit faster way, always try to find the biggest number. In this case, 16 goes evenly into 32. So this would be the square root of 16 and the square root of 2, which becomes 4 square roots of 2. So of course, if you could find the bigger thing to divide it by. If there's more than one, it's going to make your life easier, but if you don't see it, that's okay, just keep going. It's just like when you're reducing fractions sometimes. So x equals plus or minus 4 square roots of 2. All right, letter D. Ooh, this one is fun. Okay, so let's move that 30 over, right? So I have 2x equals 30, excuse me, 2x squared equals 30. But we have a problem. The x squared is still not by itself, and in order to do this, it has to be by itself. So let's go ahead and divide it by 2 to get that 2 off of there. So now I have x squared equals, oops, sorry, not square root yet, equals 15. Go ahead and take the square root. So x equals square root of 15. I don't believe that can be broken up into anything, so you just leave it as plus or minus square root of 15. Okay, let's do another one. So let's subtract 12 from both sides. This one's very similar to the last one. So now you have negative 3x equals negative 12. Let's go ahead and divide by negative 3. So x squared equals positive 4. Take the square root of that, and so x equals plus or minus 2. Last one. Okay, so let's see what happens. We need to get the x squared by itself, so let's see. Let's subtract 2x from it. Looky there, they both cancel, which is nice. Okay, so I have x squared equals 24. Take the square root of it. I believe 4 is the only one that goes evenly into that because it's 4 times 6. So that becomes plus or minus 2 square roots of 6, and that equals x. All right, that is it for this video. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.